March will mean 2 months off the pot. Tried this last year around March. I went through some stressful times and I went back to smoking weed. Now I'm just so conscious of all the many problems in my life, but still with very little motivation to do much about it. I woke up so full of hatred today for basically everything and everyone around me. The idea of going back to smoking is starting to seem more and more attractive. God, please help me. Zenny, I am certainly not God, but I'm going to do everything I can in today's video to try and help you out with the situation that you're facing. This is a series on the channel where I'll answer questions from community members here on our Addiction Mindset community. If you're new to the channel, my name's Dr. Frank. I'm the founder of Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching, programs dedicated to helping people quit nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content. So this individual is 2 months free of smoking weed. And essentially what they're describing is a feeling of being very, very angry, and what I would interpret as being very, very overwhelmed. And all I can do is try and relate this back to when I first quit. When you have an addiction, you're motivated by a drug. You're motivated by a substance. So when that substance is removed from your life, that motivation definitely drops off initially in the beginning. There's a sharp decline in motivation. I remember for me, when I first quit, I had a bunch of different problems going on. I had financial problems. I had relationship problems. I had some pretty serious health problems with Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome. I had the family drama of my parents' divorce and all that stuff going on. There was a lot of problems. And I was so overwhelmed too. I remember being overwhelmed, and I remember being motivated very, very little to actually do something about it. And a big part for me that led to my success in staying sober was breaking down all of these big problems into little bite-sized pieces. I already felt overwhelmed just trying not to smoke weed and use nicotine and watch porn. That was overwhelming enough. But now to have all the problems that existed prior to my addiction, on top of all the problems that were created by my addiction to those substances, it was flooring. Right? How do you even get up and start your day with all of that bearing over your head? So I broke each problem down into bite-sized pieces, and I worked with people to try and find bite-sized solutions. I'm now an addiction recovery coach. I believe firmly in coaching, but guys, I had hired a business coach. It was extremely expensive because I had financial problems in my business. And fortunately, I was able to hire someone, but they were a huge help. They held me accountable, and they pushed me to be motivated day in and day out to keep showing up and keep doing the work. Because otherwise, I might have not even shown up. I might have not even cared that much. And not only did they coach me privately, but I attended a bunch of events and seminars on the topic to try and rebuild that motivation. I had a therapist that I was working with. So she was extremely motivating and extremely helpful when it came to helping me rediscover that motivation, rediscover how to get through the anxiety, rediscover how to compartmentalize some of those overwhelming feelings, just helping me break down my day-to-day activities. I had friends who were supporting me and holding me accountable and keeping me motivated. Here's all these problems. And a common mistake I would make, and maybe you're making this mistake, maybe not, Zenny, but when I first quit, many times I would try and take on all my problems at once, and it was too much. So I'd freeze up and I would just do nothing. I wouldn't do anything. But when I started to break it down into bite-sized pieces, it was 1,000 times easier to approach it. And each time I checked off one of those little bite-sized pieces, it gave me a little bit more motivation. And then that motivation started to build, like, oh, I took care of X, Y, and Z today. Maybe tomorrow I can do A, B, and C, and then combine them all. And then there's that snowball effect. I wouldn't quit weed expecting to feel super motivated right off the bat, because for many people, that's just not going to happen. I want to say a caveat in here. Weed is medicine. It is. It hands down. And weed has a lot of benefits for some people. If I'm working with someone and we're 6 months, a year into quitting, and this person is saying, listen, I'm more depressed, I'm more anxious, my quality of life has not improved at all since quitting weed, and they've really tried to work on their problems, they've really put in the work, then I say to that person, well, maybe weed wasn't the problem in your life. And Zenny, I'm not saying that's the case for you. I don't want you to go start smoking weed again just because I'm on that topic that for some people, weed is beneficial. Just keep that somewhere in the back of your mind. For anyone who's watching this video, who's putting in all the work, you're several months in, you've given it a lot of time. And if you can sit down and say, my quality of life is now worse off without weed, well, maybe there was something else going on. Maybe it wasn't the weed that needed all the attention. Secondly, if we're going to talk about weed as medicine, don't forget, and I'm not a big fan of supplements, I don't plug them a lot, but don't forget about CBD oil or CBD gummies with no THC in it. If you're not suffering from cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, taking a CBD product might be beneficial, because if that anger and that frustration is in part due to a problem with your endocannabinoid system, a quality CBD product might really, really, really help you out. Definitely worth looking into. And I don't feel that people are at a large risk to reignite their THC addiction by using CBD, although I don't recommend vaping it or doing dry herb. I think, stick to a gummy, stick to an oil tincture. And I work with a CBD company, actually, guys, and I put links to their products in the video description if you want to check that out. Don't rush trying to fix all of your problems at once in early sobriety, because you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to feel like doing nothing, and you're going to get angry and you're going to get stressed, and that's definitely going to lead to relapse. What's maybe one of the easier problems that you can start to work on today or tomorrow? What are some problems that maybe it would help you to have a coach or a therapist or a friend or a support community for? And what steps do you have to take to fix these problems? Because chances are they're not going to fix just like that. Chances are it's going to take a series of steps. So what baby steps could you do each day to check off that list to maybe build up a little bit of motivation? That motivation isn't just going to appear suddenly. It's going to require a lot of fostering and a lot of work. I wasn't motivated when I started this YouTube channel and you get, 1 view, 2 views, whatever. Mostly you get insulted, especially in the work that I do. I wasn't too motivated, but as I kept pushing, that motivation had a snowball effect. And I think for a lot of people in sobriety and recovery, they find the same thing. To end this video, if you're sitting here saying, well, wait a minute, should I go back to smoking weed again? Did he just say that I should smoke again if I'm not doing well? Really sit down and ask yourself, have I put in all the work that I'm capable of putting into my sobriety and recovery process? Because I would hate for you to give up on something if you just haven't yet taken the proper steps to getting better and doing better. And certainly, if you have taken all those steps, and you're saying your quality of life is still worse, it's worse off without weed, then by all means, reconsider, assessing your relationship with weed. Maybe it wasn't actually that bad. Why don't you follow me into the next video where I talk about my toxic relationship with weed and how weed caused major problems for me in life.